Welcome to Sleepy Historian, where old tales whisper by candlelight and memories gently drift into dreams. Tonight, let us journey back to a time long asleep in history.
It's hard to overstate just how relentlessly bleak things were in Leningrad. Food was scarce. The supply convoys bringing necessities into the city were few and far between, and most of what was delivered was quickly distributed to those working in factories deemed essential to the war effort. As a result, average rations consisted of a few potatoes a day and whatever small amount of bread you could manage to scrounge together. If you were lucky enough to have access to a private kitchen, perhaps with a wood-burning stove or an extra bedroom to use as a kitchen, you might be able to cook hot meals for yourself and your family. But if not, you would spend much of every day queuing for hot, watery soup, which was often little more than water and cabbage. If you were elderly or disabled, you might receive additional support, but this often took the form of extra work, such as cleaning the floors or dormitories of communal living spaces. Children, too, were expected to contribute, collecting firewood or doing odd jobs in the communal apartments. It was a time when children matured quickly and the lines between adult and child became blurred. There were no toys or games to distract them from the harsh reality of their surroundings. And so many children died that it was easier for adults to cope if they pretended that their own children had been evacuated from the city. On particularly cold nights, families huddled together in the dark, sharing whatever meager food they had, trying to keep each other warm and dreaming of a future beyond the siege. Outside, the wind howled, shaking the walls of the apartment block, and you pull your scarf tighter, burying your face in its folds. The next morning, you wake up early, make your bed, then join the queue for breakfast. After a few bites of bread and cheese, you set out for work. The tram rattles along the ice-jammed streets. There are almost no cars on the road. All around you, people trudge through the snow, their faces hidden behind thick coats. When you arrive home, the sky is dark with snow, and you hurry inside before you can make a snowball. That evening, you sit at the kitchen table with your family eating your dinner of watery soup and boiled potatoes. Afterward, you take your turn at the old radio to try and tune in some news. You hear a voice crackling through the static, talking about the heroic defense of Leningrad. It's all propaganda. Everyone knows that Leningrad is being starved into submission. You think about the German soldiers outside the ring road, and you shiver. What will happen when they get closer? Will you be taken to one of the infamous filtration camps? You've seen the posters warning of the horrors that await, but still, you wonder, could you survive one of those camps? Or would you prefer death by starvation? The candle flickers, casting dancing shadows on the walls. You hold your breath, listening intently, but there are only the sounds of the wind and the voices of sleepers. Another night in Leningrad. As the siege dragged on, a composer named Dmitri Shostakovich poured his heart and soul into his music. He wrote Symphony No. 7, a powerful and moving work that has become known as the Leningrad Symphony. The piece reflects the struggles and resilience of the people of Leningrad during the siege. And if you want to hear it, you can listen to recordings online. Shostakovich's music gave voice to the pain and suffering of those trapped in the city, and it became a symbol of hope and resistance against the darkness of war. Outside Leningrad, a thin layer of ice covers Lake Ladoga, and a precarious road has been carved through it. The road of life. Here, convoys brave the frozen lake to bring supplies into the besieged city. The risk is high, but it's worth it to save lives. It's the only way to bring food into the city. Sometimes the ice breaks and trucks fall through, plunging into the icy depths, but others make it across safely, delivering precious cargo. Among them are musicians, bringing instruments and sheet music to keep the cultural flame alive in the darkest of times. In Moscow, high-ranking government officials gather at the Kremlin to discuss the situation in Leningrad. They debate whether to evacuate the city or to continue the fight. The risks of evacuation are great, and so many lives could be lost in the process. Stalin fears that giving up Leningrad would be a sign of weakness and a blow to Russian pride. Others argue that saving the city and its people is more important than prestige. The leaders squabble, unsure of what to do, and you wonder if anyone will come to save you. You feel so alone in this moment, and the fear is almost unbearable. Will you die here? Will anyone mourn your passing? As the night wears on, the blizzard rages outside, and you huddle deeper into your coat, seeking comfort in the darkness. And so the siege continues, day after day, week after week, month after month. The people of Leningrad endure the cold, the hunger, and the fear, holding on to hope for a better tomorrow. They find strength in their resilience, in their shared humanity, and in their determination to survive. The story of Leningrad is one of immense suffering, but it's also a testament to the strength of the human spirit. The people of Leningrad refused to give up. They held on to their hope, their culture, and their lives. In doing so, they left an indelible mark on history, reminding us of the importance of courage, resilience, and the indomitable spirit of humanity. Now, close your eyes and imagine the wind whistling through the empty streets of Leningrad. Picture the snow falling silently on the rooftops and feel the deep freeze of winter seeping into your bones. Listen closely. Can you hear the distant rumble of artillery fire? Can you feel the gnawing pangs of hunger? Can you smell the faint aroma of wood smoke and fresh-baked bread wafting from a distant kitchen? This is your moment to step back in time and experience the haunting reality of Leningrad. What did you see? What did you hear? What did you feel? Share your experiences in the comments below. Welcome to my channel. When you think of World War II, images probably spring to mind. Soldiers, tanks, weapons. But what about daily life? We're talking about something called the Siege of Leningrad. This was a brutal chapter during World War II that started way back in 1941. Germany was on the march, pushing the Soviet Union further and further. And in September, they laid siege to the city of Leningrad. That's now known as St. Petersburg. For 872 days, the German army kept most supply routes into the city blocked. This turned Leningrad into a kind of laboratory where scientists could study what happens when a major city runs out of pretty much everything. Now, daily life in Leningrad during the siege was defined by three great struggles: hunger, cold, and fear. The first two are pretty obvious. Imagine yourself living in a cramped apartment, the wallpaper faded, the windows covered with frost. The glass is fragile and rattles faintly with each distant explosion. Inside, it's barely warmer than outside because the heating has long since stopped. You huddle with your family, wearing your coats and blankets, trying to find a bit of warmth. The only sounds are the coughs from your loved ones and the wind trying to break through the cracks in the walls. Sometimes you have to burn things to keep warm. At first, it's just old furniture or pieces of wood. But if you can find a way to get your hands on books, paper, or anything made of cellulose, you might burn those too. The smell of burning wood lingers in the air, and every time you light a fire, you worry about smoke coming out of your chimney, drawing attention to your apartment. This fear of being bombed is always in the back of your mind. Every time an aircraft flies over, you wonder if it's friend or foe. And when bombs fall, you throw yourself to the ground and cover your head. To live in the city is to balance constantly on the edge of exhaustion. It doesn't take long for this tension to show itself. The second struggle is the hunger. Food rations were cut again and again until they were almost nothing. At the start, each person received 600 grams of bread a day. That's about 2 slices of bread in America today. Then the supply lines became more tenuous and the rations dropped. Eventually, everyone got just 125 grams of bread a day, less than a bar of soap. You might receive more if you were a worker or a soldier, but it never came close to being enough. So everyone started looking for other sources of food. Some families raised pigeons or rabbits. Others dug up potatoes in frozen earth, but the real money was in the black market. Here, a single egg could cost 5 times the price of a fur coat. People sold everything they owned to buy food. A woman might trade her wedding ring or an officer his decorations. The struggle to eat led to the third, fear. You constantly worried about stealing, fights, and death. Food was so precious that people hid their rations. If you left your door open, someone might steal your food, or worse, you might become the meal. On the worst days, all you can do is stand in line waiting for a soup kitchen to open. You know what you'll get is watery and maybe not very safe, but it's something. Still, you wait in the cold, hoping to get more. People were dying all around you, collapsing in the street, frozen or starved. You see them and you fear it might be you next. It takes a terrible toll on your body and your soul. Women gave birth, but babies were rarely weaned. There weren't enough nutrients in mother's milk. And when children got older, they were taken to special dining halls where they might get more nutrition. Sadly, they didn't always survive. When they did, they survived on watery soups and industrial nutrients. A diet that might keep someone alive, but it can't help them grow. When the siege finally ended, many children couldn't even walk, let alone run. Yet despite these horrors, life continued in the city. Kids went to school. Teachers stood before classrooms, their voices thin but steady, while students rubbed their hands together for warmth, clutching tiny slates instead of notebooks. Now, obviously, many schools closed after the first few months because there weren't enough teachers or kids to go around. After all, 600,000 people died in the siege, mostly civilians. But when schools did function, they taught kids to keep going. Workers went to factories and produced whatever materials were needed for the defense. The war effort took priority, so workers made ammunition, guns, tanks, and military vehicles. Of course, this was hard going because they didn't get much food. Many couldn't even get enough calories to meet basic requirements. But they kept working. Hospitals functioned with minimal supplies. Doctors moved softly from bed to bed, doing what they could. They saw horrible injuries, but also illnesses caused by malnutrition. Few medicines could fix these problems. The best chance for patients was getting out of Leningrad. But to leave the city was a perilous journey, like winning the lottery. Many people applied, but only a few were chosen. This is why hospitals had limited impact. They were staffed by heroic doctors, but they didn't have enough medicine, food, or space. In the evenings, the city grew quiet. Electricity faltered often, and many nights were spent by the dim glow of candles or oil lamps. Families would sit together, conserving heat, conserving energy, and sharing small stories to keep their minds off hunger. You might tell your loved ones about the birthday party you attended once, or the movie you watched before the war. Those moments felt safer than the present, but the silence wasn't always comfortable. Sometimes it was broken by the scraping of spoons against nearly empty bowls. It's hard to describe how this must have sounded, the silence broken by such a mundane noise. It must have been both painful and jarring. It's easier to talk about food when you don't have any. We've all had those conversations, reminiscing about our favorite foods. But for the citizens of Leningrad, these conversations had a different cadence, part comfort, part torture. Talking about food allowed them to hold on to the memory of flavors, textures, and aromas that had become scarce. They discussed recipes, ingredients, and meals they used to enjoy. And somehow that made it easier to bear the gnawing reality of hunger. It was like keeping a part of life and normalcy alive. And yet it was also a constant reminder of what they were missing. It's heartbreaking. A common sight during the siege was seeing people walk home in the snow. They trudged through the white landscape, making their way back to the shadowy buildings. The snow muffled their footsteps, making them quieter and harder to hear. Most were too tired to make much noise. They walked slowly and quietly. The war raged on around them, almost unnoticed. Now, I know you want me to say that after this ordeal, everything was better. People laughed, danced, and partied. But that's not what happened. Of course, there were celebrations when the siege was finally lifted, but the war wasn't over. Russia went on fighting. Germany didn't surrender until May 1945, and the Soviet Union kept fighting the Japanese in the Far East until September. The story of Leningrad reminds us that war isn't just battles, it's also about daily life. We don't usually talk about this, but it was a big part of the experience. And the story of Leningrad teaches us about courage, the courage to endure, the courage to keep going, even when it seems impossible. It's a lesson for us all. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. We bring you new videos every week. And if you have your own ideas for videos, let us know in the comments section below. And we're grateful to the musicians of the Mariinsky Orchestra for allowing us to use excerpts from Shostakovich, a 7th symphony in this episode. As winter tightened its grip on Leningrad in 1941, the German guns fell silent for a moment, pausing only to catch their breath before the final push that would bring the city to its knees. With supplies low, the residents knew that they had only a few weeks left before starvation forced surrender. But amid the looming darkness, one small light flickered. On November 18, 1941, a fleet of trucks rumbled onto the ice of Lake Ladoga. They lumbered forward carefully, each carrying a precious cargo that could sustain a family for several days: flour, cabbage, vodka. 86 trucks arrived that day, a number that seemed almost laughable given the needs of the city, but which represented a crucial start. Every week, the convoys grew larger, moving more supplies across the frozen lake until, on December, a train ran for the first time. It was one engine pulling 3 cars, but that was just the beginning. As the weeks passed, more trains ran. By January 1942, nearly 10,000 people were being evacuated from Leningrad, along with much-needed food and vital resources. The German siege was still firmly in place, but a vital artery had been opened. This was the road of life, a lifeline that allowed supplies to move across the ice of Lake Ladoga, some 30 miles or 50 kilometers south of the city. Though no major battles were fought over the ice, it was a battle nonetheless. Storms, high winds, and the threat of cracking ice created constant danger. Vehicles had to be driven slowly to avoid breaking through. Even then, sometimes the ice did break, dropping trucks and cars into the freezing water below. Many vehicles never emerged. Their shattered remnants are still visible on the lake bed, serving as reminders of the fragility of this lifeline. Along the road, life hung in the balance. It was a perilous journey, fraught with peril, yet essential to the city's survival. Some have called this period the Great Siege of Leningrad, lasting from September 8, 1941 to January 27, 1944. But while we remember these dates, it's important to understand that within that time span, the experience of the city was not static. There were moments of respite, brief truces during which goods could pass through, families could visit relatives, and soldiers could take a brief rest. We might call these lulls breathing points in the story of the siege. And among these, the road of life was the most significant. The road began its life as a series of supply routes used by Russia's Tsarist army before the Bolshevik Revolution. But it was not until World War II that these paths consolidated into a single road connecting Leningrad to the mainland. Given that Germany controlled all land routes into Leningrad, it was on the frozen surface of Lake Ladoga that the city found salvation. As spring approached in 1942, the flow of supplies increased. More trains ran, and with them came fuel, food, and most importantly, hope. Hope that the city might hold out against the siege, hope that rescue might come, and with it, the possibility of ending the nightmare. Of course, there were risks. If the Germans discovered the road of life, they could easily sever it, cutting off Leningrad's last remaining link to the outside world. To prevent this, the Soviets constructed a series of defensive positions along the route. Gun emplacements hidden in the forest, pillboxes constructed of logs, trenches snaking through the trees. These defenses were designed not to repel a full-scale attack, but to delay it long enough for the convoys to reach safety. Should the Germans discover the location of the road? At one point, camouflage covered a large section of the railway line running across the lake, hiding it from view. In this way, the road became a secret, a closely guarded secret that sustained the city and inspired hope. But hope is a fragile thing, especially in the face of hunger. As the summer of 1942 arrived, bringing warmer weather and a thaw on the ground, the flow of supplies dropped dramatically. The road was still open, but the volume of trade dropped. This was the result not only of worsening weather, which made travel across the lake treacherous, but also the effects of hunger on those working to sustain the city. Among the workers driving trucks, loading trains, and unloading supplies, malnutrition took a heavy toll. Men once strong enough to handle great loads now struggled to carry boxes up steep ramps or lift sacks of grain. Women who had walked miles to work collapsed before reaching their destinations. Accidents increased, as did fatigue, lowering production and raising the specter of surrender. Food continued to be unloaded at the siege station on the southern edge of the lake. But at this point, even the arrival of new goods could not improve the desperate situation. Within the city, people were reduced to eating sawdust mixed with water, leather, briefcases, books, newspapers, window frames, anything to ease the gnawing emptiness. By midsummer, some 600,000 people were dead, victims of starvation, cold, and disease. For the survivors, the wait for rescue continued. In July, a cultural delegation arrived from the city, eager to document the plight of Leningrad. Artists were sent with cameras, notebooks, and pencils. They were tasked with showing the world the reality of the siege, and they did so in photographs and sketches depicting emaciated children, gone adults, and the ever-present lines. People waited in these lines for food, for transportation, for news. Some stood patiently, others stumbled, and still others simply collapsed where they stood. One artist captured a group of boys emerging from a shelter. They were waiting for a meal. Another depicted two women leaning on each other, their bodies frail, their heads bent under the weight of their circumstances. They titled this piece "Anti-Fascism." Yet another artist showed an elderly woman holding a portrait of Stalin. She too was hungry, but she believed in her leader. He would save her. They all would be saved. From the shores of Lake Ladoga, the world watched the brave men and women of the Red Army fighting to break the siege. They did not see the Germans massing troops to the north, readying themselves for a final assault. When it came, the city was not ready. On August 15, 1942, German troops crossed the Neva River, encircling the city more tightly than before. Any hope of relief from the west, northeast, or south was dashed. Leningrad was cut off. The road across Lake Ladoga was no longer an option. All that remained was the northwest. The Germans did not know about the road of life, nor did they know that the city had any chance of holding out longer. Inside Leningrad, the defenders had but one choice. They had to fight on. Those who were too weak to work were sent home. More medical facilities were opened, and all available resources were devoted to keeping the city alive. It was a brutal time, marked by illness, death, and a desperate struggle to stay awake and keep moving. Vivid memories of this period have been recorded by those who lived through it, telling stories of people collapsing at their desks, sleeping in the middle of the street, and falling out of chairs without falling out of their dreams. Some have recalled the constant background hum of suffering. It was the sound of hunger, of coughing, of scraping. Others remembered the sights, people with distended stomachs, Swollen legs, faces drained of color, eyes dulled by hunger and cold. For 900 days, Leningrad endured. And if you'd like to learn more about how it happened, we invite you to tune into our audio series. Through this companion podcast, you'll hear stories of courage, deprivation, and resistance from those who survived the siege. In a format designed for the radio, you'll walk the snow-covered streets of the city, sit at the dinner table of an officer's family, and hide in shelters as bombs fall overhead. You'll hear from people like Victor, who says, "I remember my wife standing in the corridor between the kitchen and bedroom, holding a plate of soup made from a turnip. Suddenly she screamed, clutching her stomach. 'Help me,' she cried, collapsing onto the floor. It was the last time I saw her alive." With specially recorded soundscapes and immersive sound design, you'll experience Leningrad like never before. To understand how Leningrad survived, one must leave the frozen streets of the city and look outward across the vast expanse of Lake Ladoga. Lake Ladoga is immense. Imagine standing on its shore in winter, a horizon that seems endless. The surface transformed into an icy plain, silent and white, stretching far beyond what the eye can see. When the German army encircled Leningrad, they cut off the city from nearly every source of food, fuel, and medicine. The people of Leningrad endured 900 days of total siege, 900 days of terror and hunger, during which time more than 1 million civilians died. The Germans hoped that Leningrad would fall after a few weeks at most. They underestimated the resolve of the Soviet people and the ingenuity born out of desperation. They also underestimated the immensity of Lake Ladoga, which became the only lifeline for a city under siege. Across it ran a supply route that came to be called the Road of Life. On the eastern edge of Lake Ladoga, a settlement called Emde remained outside enemy control. There, day and night, a convoy of trucks rumbled across the ice, bringing in desperately needed provisions and evacuating people too weak to leave on their own. But the Germans were closing in on Imja. By January 1942, they had reached the outskirts of the town. Soon, the entire road might fall into enemy hands. With each passing day, the situation grew more perilous. In summer, at least barges could ferry goods across the lake. But in winter, the water froze solid. Trucks were the only means of transport, and they had to brave not just the elements, but enemy planes and the constant threat of ice-jammed roads. Across the frozen lake, through the snowy wastelands, along a track barely wide enough for a truck, ran the Road of Life. To imagine it, one must turn the clock back 82 years ago, to the bitter winter of 1942, when temperatures plummeted to 35 degrees below zero. Day and night, convoys rumbled across the ice, carrying flour, bread, sacks of potatoes, barrels of fuel, medicines, ammunition, even books for children. Each truck was a gamble, a toss of the dice on a frozen table. The ice was thick, but never entirely safe. Sometimes it cracked, swallowing trucks whole. Other times, enemy planes spotted the convoys and strafed them with gunfire. Drivers, many of them young men barely trained, gripped their wheels with white-knuckle determination, knowing that their cargo meant the difference between life and death for thousands. Those who rode across the lake spoke of the silence, vast, eerie, broken only by the hum of engines and the muffled crunch of ice. The landscape was haunting, a flat white expanse under dark skies, with small lines of trucks inching across like insects. And in that silence, the Road of Life carried hope into a starving city. Each truck departed Emga with a police escort. Their route took them across the frozen expanse of Lake Ladoga and through the forest to New Holland. There, on the other side of the lake, a team of horses awaited them. If the road was too treacherous for trucks, the supplies would be unloaded and transferred to horse-drawn sleds. From New Holland, the goods were taken to the nearest railway station and distributed across Leningrad. At the height of winter, 400 trucks rumbled across the ice daily. In the summer, the convoys were larger still, with up to 600 trucks a day. Throughout the siege, thousands of civilians were evacuated on the road of life too, mostly women and children suffering from malnutrition and illnesses. In May 1945, the Germans retreated from the shores of Lake Ladoga. On May 9th, the Red Army marched into Leningrad. The next day, the first train arrived from Moscow with food and medical supplies. But the road of life remained vital until the railway across the frozen lake was repaired. The last convoy of the road of life set off on January 1946. By then, the ice had grown too dangerous. Even the most experienced drivers refused to cross the lake. Soon, the entire road might fall into enemy hands. With each passing day, the situation grew more perilous. But it was not only supplies that traveled this way. Civilians were also evacuated. Imagine a child, bundled in a coat too large, sitting on the back of a truck, watching the snow sweep past. Families were separated at the shore. Some were sent away, others left behind. The journey across was long and bitterly cold, the wind cutting through even the thickest scarves. Yet to leave Leningrad, to move across that frozen surface, was to step from one world into another, from despair into a fragile chance at survival. For many, the road of life became more than a route. It became a symbol. Newspapers and radio broadcasts celebrated it, though in reality, each journey was filled with uncertainty. The road was constantly repaired. Its routes shifted, its dangers never ending. Soldiers laid pine branches across weak spots, marked dangerous cracks, and prayed that the ice would hold just a little longer. In time, the road of life became legendary. Today, monuments still stand along its path, remembering those who drove, who carried, who endured. It was never safe, never reliable in the way modern supply lines are. Yet it sustained a city for nearly 3 years, linking Leningrad to the world beyond its walls. So imagine yourself standing on that frozen shore, the wind biting at your face. In the distance, a convoy of trucks moves slowly, their forms blurred by blowing snow. Each truck carries flour, sugar, or fuel. Each driver knows that failure means starvation for thousands. The ice moans faintly, but the engines press on. Across this frozen world, the road of life stretches, fragile, uncertain, yet vital. As we leave this frozen expanse, we turn now to another world entirely. From the bleak survival of civilians and truck drivers, we move into the inner chambers of power, into the Kremlin itself, where strategy was crafted, where leaders planned the war, and where fear and paranoia shaped decisions that would echo far beyond the frozen streets of Leningrad. The year is 1942, and the German army, confident and aggressive, is pushing hard against the Soviet lines. The leadership in the Kremlin knows that something must be done. Leningrad is on the brink, and the specter of starvation looms large. But what to do? The options are grim. Evacuate the city, risking the lives of hundreds of thousands in the process, or attempt to supply the city, knowing that failure means almost certain death for those who stay. As the debate rages, a third option emerges, a desperate gamble. Across Lake Ladoga, a road has been cleared, a lifeline across the ice. It's tenuous, it's dangerous, but it might be enough. And so the decision is made, the gamble will be taken. A convoy will cross, and if successful, a lifeline will be established, a supply route to keep the people of Leningrad alive. The first convoy set out, a mixture of trucks and buses, carrying food, medicine, and fuel. The journey is fraught with danger. The ice, though thick, is unpredictable. The cold is relentless, but the convoys make it across, and with each successful journey, hope rises in Leningrad. The city, which had seemed on the edge of oblivion, now has a chance, however slim, to stay alive. And so the work begins in earnest. Day after day, the convoys cross the lake. They bring desperately needed supplies, and they carry away those who can be saved. The road of life becomes a lifeline, a symbol of hope in a sea of despair. But it's a precarious hope. The ice can break, the weather can turn, and with each journey, the risk is immense. Yet the people of Leningrad hold on to this lifeline, and the soldiers who guard it fight to keep it open. For them, it's more than a military duty. It's a race against death, a battle to keep hope alive. And as the convoys move across the frozen lake, they carry with them the fate of a city, the survival of a people, and the promise of a future that seems almost too fragile to exist. I want you to close your eyes and imagine yourself there, standing on the edge of Lake Ladoga, watching these convoys move across the ice. Feel the cold wind on your face. Listen to the crunch of the trucks on the frozen surface. What do you see in the distance? Do you see hope, or do you see only the struggle to survive? This is the road of life. While Leningrad endured hunger and cold, far to the south in Moscow, another kind of existence unfolded. Inside the thick red walls of the Kremlin, life was not measured in bread rations or ice cracking beneath truck wheels, but in papers, maps, and decisions that could change the fate of millions. The Kremlin during World War II was both fortress and nerve center. Its towers rose over Moscow, their star-topped spires glowing faintly in the night, even as the city itself faced bombings. Within its walls, the great halls echoed not with music or ceremony, but with a low murmur of voices bent over war maps and the scratching of pens across orders. Imagine walking down those corridors. The air is heavy with cigarette smoke. Guards stand silently at their posts. The rooms are dimly lit, blackout curtains drawn tight. The sound of boots on polished floors carries softly, steady and purposeful. This was the world of Stalin and his inner circle. Joseph Stalin, the leader of the Soviet Union, occupied a set of rooms within the Kremlin that became the core of wartime decision-making. His office was not ornate in the way one might expect. Its atmosphere was functional, practical large tables covered in documents, telephones close at hand, ashtrays filled with the remains of endless cigarettes. Stalin worked late into the night, often until dawn, summoning generals, ministers, and advisors at hours when most of the city was sleeping. Life inside the Kremlin was not without tension. Stalin's presence was formidable. He was quiet in manner, often speaking in a low, almost hesitant tone, but every word carried weight. Those who entered his office did so with care, measuring their responses, aware that trust was fragile and mistakes could be costly. Paranoia was woven into the rhythm of Kremlin life. Even among allies, fear lingered, for power in those walls was absolute, and survival depended not just on skill, but on Stalin's favor. And yet, within this atmosphere of tension, enormous tasks were undertaken. Maps of the Soviet Union, vast and sprawling, were spread across tables. Generals moved pieces representing divisions and armies. They discussed supply lines, offensives, retreats. Voices rose and fell, but always with restraint, for decisions made here reached every corner of the front. The Kremlin was a world unto itself, insulated from the hardships endured by ordinary citizens. Food was plentiful, if monotonous. The dining halls, while lacking the variety of pre-war years, still provided regular meals for those working around the clock. There was little celebration and little joy, but there was sustenance. For the soldiers guarding the building, loyalty was a matter of life and death. Many had come from the ranks, their uniforms a bit shabbier, their faces harder. They stood stoic, enduring the long hours and the weariness, for they knew the Kremlin's defense was vital. Every sentry, every guard, was a link in a chain that kept the heart of the Soviet state secure. As the war raged on, the burden on the Kremlin grew heavier. The constant drone of military operations, the clatter of typewriters churning out orders, the hushed tones of whispered reports all contributed to a relentless pressure. It was a pressure felt not just in the mind, but in the body too. Faces in the corridors seemed etched with fatigue. Eyes were shadowed with the weariness of too many hours spent hunched over maps or reports. but still, they pressed on. The men and women of the Kremlin were driven by a singular purpose, a sense of duty to a state that had become their entire world. Their families might have been scattered, their lives disrupted, but they had a role and they played it without complaint. Within the Kremlin's walls, amidst the maps, the memos, and the ceaseless activity, a nation's fate was being decided. It was a grim business fraught with peril and demanding unwavering commitment. But it was here, in this grand old building that had once been a symbol of opulence and power, that the Soviet Union was keeping its head above water, if only just. What do you find most interesting about life in the Kremlin during World War II? How does it compare to the experiences of civilians in other conflicts? Share your thoughts below. We're going to do something a little different today. We'll start at the beginning, then we'll flash forward a bit, and finally, we'll circle back to where we started. It's a bit confusing, I know, but stick with me. You'll see why later. Outside these chambers, other lives unfolded. Clerks copied documents late into the night, their pens moving steadily under dim lamps. Messengers hurried down corridors carrying sealed envelopes. Guards patrolled the courtyards, their breath rising in the frosty air, rifles slung over their shoulders. The Kremlin was alive with activity, but it was a subdued life, measured, watchful, weighted by the burden of war. Compared to the hunger of Leningrad, the Kremlin's struggles were abstract but no less heavy. Instead of waiting in breadlines, its inhabitants waited for news from the front. Instead of worrying about freezing apartments, they worried about losing entire armies. For those within, the war was a constant series of calculations. How many supplies could reach the city? How many men could be spared? How long before another offensive began? At times, even here, a kind of isolation was felt. Leaders slept little, ate hurried meals, and lived in a rhythm dictated by war reports. The Kremlin became a bubble, sealed from the cold winds outside, yet carrying its own form of siege, an intellectual and political siege of endless decisions, unrelenting pressure, and constant fear of failure. Imagine the contrast. On one side of Russia, in Leningrad, a family huddled around a single candle, dreaming of bread. On the other side, in Moscow, men in uniforms bent over maps, their fingers tracing supply routes and battle lines, their thoughts fixed on how to keep the nation alive. Two worlds, bound together by the same war, each essential to the story of survival. Now let's go back to 1942. News of the Battle of Stalingrad has just reached the Kremlin. Stalin is pacing his office, his face etched with worry. The city is surrounded, and soon the Red Army will begin to fight its way in. But that's not our focus today. What we want to understand is how this battle, fought over miles and months, is experienced in a single moment. A knock on the door. A messenger enters, his eyes downcast, holding a thick envelope. He hands it to Stalin, who immediately begins reading. His face hardens. He turns to his generals, his voice low and dangerous. "The Germans have cut off all our supply routes," he says, his words clipped. "The city is surrounded." The generals exchange glances. They knew this might happen, but to hear it confirmed is another matter entirely. Questions buzz in the room, unanswered. How long can the city hold out? Can the Red Army break through? Will reinforcements arrive in time? There's no easy answer. Every day, the situation grows more precarious. Stalin looks up, his eyes hard. "We need a plan," he says, and the officers fall to work. Maps are unrolled, supply routes traced, troop movements charted. Each decision ripples with consequence. Each choice could mean the difference between victory and defeat. The fate of Stalingrad hangs in the balance, and with it, the fate of the war. And now we're back in Leningrad. Outside, the wind bites with winter's teeth. Inside, people huddle around a single candle, its flame flickering in the vast darkness. Anna looks at her son, his cheeks sunken, his eyes wide and haunting. She knows what he's thinking. When will the food come? When will the siege end? She gathers him close, her heart breaking. She can't bear to see him like this, skin and bones, his laughter silenced by hunger. The candle sputters, the room deepens. Hope flickers, fragile as the flame. Suddenly, a knock at the door. Anna's head snaps up. Could it be? Is it the Red Cross with food? Relief? Her pulse races. The knock comes again. More insistent now. She moves to the door, her hand shaking as she reaches for the knob. As she opens it, a sliver of light spills in, bringing with it the faint sound of voices, the muffled rumble of distant trucks. Relief supplies have arrived. Tears welling, Anna steps aside, letting the light and the people in. The war had been fought on many fronts, not just in trenches and on home fronts. It was also fought in kitchens, in hushed conversations, and stolen moments of hope. It was a war of endurance, a test of wills, a struggle not just for territory, but for the very soul of a nation. And we've seen just a fragment of it, a glimpse into the lives of those who endured. There's so much more to explore, more stories to uncover, more lessons to learn. As we wrap up this journey, I want to leave you with a challenge, a call to action. Go out there, explore, discover. Let your curiosity be your compass and your empathy your guide. In doing so, you'll honor the memory of those who lived through the siege and ensure that their stories continue to inspire and educate for generations to come. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to show your support. Your engagement helps us bring history to life for more people. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep seeking answers, and above all, keep remembering. And so our journey through the siege of Leningrad draws to a close. We have moved slowly through its different worlds, into the frozen apartments where families huddled together, rationing bread so light it barely weighed in the hand. One piece for a whole day's meal into the quiet presence of Dmitri Shostakovich. His fingers shaping music that lifted spirits beyond hunger and fear across the vast and perilous ice of Lake Ladoga, where convoys of trucks carried hope into the starving city and finally into the watchful halls of the Kremlin, where decisions heavy with consequence rippled across a nation. When we step back, what we see is not just war, nor just suffering, but endurance. A rhythm of survival, slow and steady, that carried a city through nearly 900 days of isolation. Leningrad's story is a reminder of how deeply human beings can adapt, how they can continue routines, share small comforts, and even create art in the bleakest of circumstances. Now, close your eyes if you will, or perhaps just dim the lights. Imagine yourself leaving the frozen streets behind. You pull your scarf tighter against the wind, though no wind can chill you as much as the memory of those long nights spent without shelter. The snow has stopped falling, and for a moment there is only the crunch of your boots on crisp, untouched snow. All around you, the sounds of the city seem muted, as if nature herself is holding her breath. Up ahead, a thin plume of smoke curls from a chimney, promising warmth and maybe even a hot meal. The sight stirs a long-forgotten feeling of contentment. It is a simple pleasure, a luxury once more. As you approach the building, the smell of wood smoke mingles with the aroma of baking bread. For a brief while, the gnawing emptiness in your stomach eases its grip. When you reach your apartment, you find not just four walls and a roof, but a sanctuary. Inside, the room is filled with the soft glow of candlelight. Shadows dance on the walls, hiding the cracks and the scars the siege has left behind. The windows are dark, impenetrable, yet they hold the promise of a new dawn. In the corner, a radio whispers stories of the world beyond the siege, voices that have been faint but constant companions during the long months of winter. On the table sits a stack of books, their pages offering worlds both real and imagined. For a moment, you lose yourself in the written word, finding solace in tales that unfold like maps to faraway lands. As dusk settles in, you find yourself drawn to the window. Outside, the sky is a tapestry of fading light and gathering stars. Above the rooftops, a lone star shines brightly, a silent witness to the resilience of the human spirit. Leningrad endured, and in its struggle created a symphony of survival. It was a testament to the strength of those who refused to surrender to the cold, the darkness, or the despair. Now, if you could, imagine opening the window and stepping onto a balcony. Here, amidst the remnants of a harsh winter, the first buds of spring are beginning to appear. Tiny green shoots push through the frozen earth, reaching for the warmth of the returning sun. It is a quiet victory, a small triumph of nature over adversity. As you breathe in the crisp air, you feel a sense of renewal, a reminder that even in the coldest winters, spring is never far behind. From here, let your thoughts drift further still, until the icy streets of Leningrad fade into the distance. Let the sounds of the city, the laughter of children, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle lapping of waves on a distant shore fill your ears. Imagine yourself in a place of warmth and safety, surrounded by the comforting sense of home, the soft glow of familiar lights, and the loving smiles of friends and family. Allow yourself to relax into this feeling of peace, knowing that the story of Leningrad, with all its hardship and heroism, has come to an end for now. But carry with you the quiet strength you've discovered within yourself, the power of hope, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. The story is complete, and as you drift off to sleep, may the memories of courage and resilience inspire you to face your own challenges with a quiet and steady resolve.
Tonight's story comes to a close. If your eyes have gently shut, then I wish you a deep, peaceful sleep. Until we meet again in the next dream.